What's going on, guys? This is Dave Holman, aka Dynasty Dorks. This is the SGPN Fantasy Football Podcast. And we're brought to you by Game Time. Snag the tickets without the stress. Use promo code SCFBX on your first purchase to save $20. Download the Game Time app and use promo code CFBX. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play the Underdog Pick'em, college or NFL, and win up to 20 times your money in one game. Plus, every Sunday they're giving away $100K. Use promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for a 100% deposit bonus up to $500. We're also brought to you by VSIN. Sign up today and save 40% off with their football season special when you use promo code SGP. VSIN, subscribe, promo code SGP. Finally, we're brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. So today we're going to talk about target share. We're going to get the target share report. We're going to get the snap share report. And we're also going to talk about some trades. So if you got some trades you're thinking about, put them in the comments. You can hit us up, SGPN Fantasy, on Twitter. And as always, hit that subscriber button. We're going to be talking trades. It's Tuesday. It's Trade Tuesday. Make your team better. Don't let other people beat you to the punch. So, Brad, let's talk about some trades right off the bat. I want to bring up probably one of the most difficult guys to trade for, and that is Tua Tagovailoa. And so there has not been any recent trades, probably because people are afraid of how much that they're going to have to give up for him. But a trade right off the bat, Austin Eckler, Tua, T. Higgins, for Justin Jefferson, Jared Goff, and a 2024 second. What side would you be on there?
I'm on Eckler, Tua, and T side. Look, I get it. You're getting the best wide receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson, especially from a longevity perspective. But there are question marks, as much as people don't want to say there are, around Jared Goff. And when I see the stability and the explosion that is Tua, that we quite frankly shouldn't have been writing off, because we saw it before he got hurt last year and he just picked up in that Mike McDaniel's offense all over again. You get T. Higgins, a guy who's not, in my opinion, super far down from Justin Jefferson. I still think he's a top 12, top 15 dynasty asset at the wide receiver position entering free agency next year. And you get a win now piece in Austin Eckler. I think this is a good trade for that Tua side, really, regardless of your situation, whether it's a rebuilding or a competitive type squad.
What about Jalen Hurts for Tua, a first and a second?
So I am still, and maybe the recency bias with Tua and the recency bias that is the offense that we're still kind of wanting to see come to life a little bit in the Philadelphia Eagles is swaying me here, but I'm leaning that to a first and a second side. I think Jalen Hurts and that offense will get, back on track to what we saw last year. I'm not seeing it yet. I know the current offensive coordinator was on the coaching staff last year, so it's not like a change in philosophy entirely or terminology, but the play calling is not the greatest thing right now. So I'm leaning that Tua and a first side.
Dak Prescott, you need at least 3 firsts in that league, Danny. At least 3 firsts. I mean, you could send me Tua. Maybe I'll take Tua in that situation. I've always, I've changed a little bit, but before I would never draft Cowboys or Eagles on my fantasy team. I just never want to cheer for them. And I started a dynasty team out with CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, and the team is cursed. They're number 4 in the league in scoring, and they're 0-3. They cannot stop a nosebleed. The worst defense in the league. It's just awful. But, yeah, send some offers for Dak. Send some offers for CD. We'll talk. Jamie, what's up, man? How are you? And so apparently it's not letting me look up Mr. Stroud. But Tua is definitely someone that people that were not afraid of the medical.
Pull him up for us real quick.
Absolutely. They're absolutely making bank right now for what they had to pay for him. Matt Haas, what's up, brother? Dak is poop. I don't disagree, man. I think the offense did a little bit better in Dallas. This weekend was interesting. They basically try to use that as a bye week, and Dak and a first for Anthony Richardson. That's too much. I'm taking the Anthony Richardson side on that, but it's not. I don't know. That's a little Dak and a first for Anthony Richardson. I don't know.
I'm still the Dak and I get it, but I'm still the Dak and a first side there.
I might need a second back, but we can discuss that one. I don't hate that one. So what do you got, CJ Stroud up?
Yeah, so we got a couple for CJ Stroud here. Would you move CJ Stroud and Drake London for CD Lamb?
CD Lamb for CJ Stroud and Drake London in a super flex. These are all super flex. This was on 913 or 914.
Yep.
That I might go with Stroud and London here. You're getting a young receiver. I know that it's a tough situation there in Atlanta, but you're also getting you're getting CJ Stroud, an up and coming top 12 dynasty quarterback right now. And so I think that might be enough to make the leap. But I think it's a good fair trade.
Oh my goodness. If you could pull this off, good on you. CJ Stroud for Rashid Shaheed and a 25 first.
Well, again, these are September trades. We don't have a lot of recent trades that are pulling in. If anyone has any recent trades, let us know. It's tough to see some of these. Brad, let's look at some running backs here. What kind of running backs do we go with? And while you're looking that up, are there any quarterbacks that you're targeting right now, or any quarterbacks that you're selling right now?
So I am very interested in the guy or gal that has Joe Burrow or owns Joe Burrow on their squad. Are you panicking after I'll say 2.5 atrocious games? Because he has not looked good. And if you can start to sway that owner a little bit, who thought they had a contending team, but Joey B is not really bringing it home for him, I'm going to try to get that player away from them. You know what? Here's Jared Goff, and I'll even throw in a first-round pick on top of it. You know what? Here's CJ Stroud in a second. Just take Stroud in a second. Let me help you out a little bit. I am going with anything and everything that I can to try to get Joe Burrow before he returns to form, because this is not a long-term issue with him, I don't believe. So am I crazy? Are you willing to go kind of touch base with the Burrow owner and see where they're at?
I think it's very risky to go trade for Joe Burrow right now if you're intending on him being a piece of your team this year. Long-term, I think it's going to be a great move. But Joe Burrow's, he's got a bye week in week 7. He's playing against Tennessee Titans this weekend. Last time they played Joe Burrow, they sacked him 9 times. I'm very afraid of what's going to happen to Joe Burrow this weekend. I was surprised that the Rams did not blitz or do more to get him off of his spot. But yeah, T-Law and Burrow will be guys that I'm looking to buy. A guy that I'd be looking to sell, Matthew Stafford. He looks good. Cooper Kupp's coming back. And it hasn't necessarily resulted in great fantasy points, but you're going to lose that window. What's going to happen is you're going to get a little comfortable there with Matt Stafford. Then all of a sudden he's going to get a back injury, an elbow injury, and the trade value is just going to plummet. You have a little window here, especially with some of these quarterbacks going down, where you can move. You can go and move. One of these players for you trade away Matthew Stafford and get some of these younger players, or get another, get a piece back like a pick.
Is this what you're willing to do, Matthew Stafford for Zach Wilson?
What? No,
it's less than a week ago.
Well, not well. I said I would sell him. I didn't say I'd sell him for nothing.
How about Matthew Stafford for a 2025 second round pick?
If I'm a rebuilding team, I'm fine with that.
I'd almost rather let him die on my roster, to be honest.
It's even
No,
though it's
I mean, do we
2025.
think that a 25 second is going to turn into something like a Matthew Stafford?
If I said 24 second, would that be more interested?
No, a second is not. If I'm
You're
in a
not getting
super
a
flex
first.
league, I do not want to sell one of my starting quarterbacks for a second round pick. I
You're
just
not
don't.
getting a. Are you telling me that I would have to pay a first to get Matthew Stafford off your team?
He's
He's gonna
past
die
the
on your
point.
roster.
He's past. Yeah, he's going to die on my roster. Look, here's the deal. Somebody who is giving you a second round pick for Matthew Stafford is somebody who's trying to win. So that pick is going to be the 210 to 212. Is that?
Maybe there's a lot of
I'm not
delusional.
interested in that.
There's a lot of delusional people right now that are 0-3 with crappy rosters that are looking to win now.
No,
Um,
maybe. I mean, if
but
that's the case, sure. If it's going to be an early second, okay, yes. But if this
I still think
person
an
has a
early.
squad that they're trying to get a third quarterback for to manage bye weeks, I'm just not. I'm not doing it. I'm not
Let's
gonna.
talk about Jamie's trade. I don't want to go too much more on Stafford. We disagree on that one. I'm not trading an early second for Stafford either. My
Yep.
last trade was in Dynasty. Traded away Swift Bateman for 2024 first, most likely top 3 to get one of the top QBs or Marvin Harrison. That's a slam dunk home run. That's awesome. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Some people will trade these. They'll go for these win now moves. Swift and Bateman, like Swift looked really, really good. But
2 weeks in a row now.
yeah, 2 weeks in a row he looked good. But early 2024 first, if you get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., that is better than almost any running back that you can get in Dynasty. And Swift is not a top 5 Dynasty running back. So that is just a smash. And Rashad Bateman's already hurt. It's not even week 4 yet.
Yeah,
So
I don't disagree with that. Yeah, even with my love of Swift, you got to take that trade. But look, hey, we all want to go see some of these players, right? I'd love to go see DeAndre Swift in person and see him smash like he has the last 2 weeks. And if I was willing to go to Philadelphia, which I am not, side note, I'd be using Game Time. I'd be buying tickets to all my favorite events, not just Philly game. Maybe I want to go see the Reds. Maybe I want to go see the Browns again, the Steelers near where I live currently. And Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy those tickets for not only sports, but music, comedy, and even theater near you. They have killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over all the tickets and what they're going to cost and start getting hyped for all the fun you're going to have. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I've been looking at some Matt Rife tickets for the what's he calling it? The terrific. Can't remember the damn name of the tour name now, but Matt Rife, great comedian, guy that I absolutely love. Listen to all of his shorts, any of his stand-up stuff. And I've been trying to talk my wife into it and showing her the gametime.co prices for that. I don't have to plan months in advance. They have deals on the tickets right up to the day of the event. And you might even get lucky. And they have exclusive flash deals on tickets for not only the comedy and the Matt Rife shows, but concerts, baseball, basketball, football, and many, many more things. And the game time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, guess what? Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. They are the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a multitude of reasons. So snag tickets without the stress of Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our promo code CF BX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And again, create an account, redeem our code CFBX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
I'll tell you what I was doing this weekend. I was winning money on Row Fantasy. You can play alongside your favorite team all season long. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. From now until October 4th, Underdog is matching 100% deposits for first-time deposits up to $500. $100,000 given away every single Sunday on Underdog Fantasy. Total of $2 million in prizes all season long. 100K in prizes this week. 10K to 10 people this week. New sweepstakes every week of the NFL season. Tossed out an Underdog Fantasy play. I'm going to give you Sam Laporta higher 4.0 receptions and 41.5 receiving yards. Give me higher. Sam Laporta is hot. He's a very big part of this offense, and that's not going to stop. So watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you use SGPN as your promo code, will double your deposit up to $500. It's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. So, Brad, let's talk a little bit more. So, Matt, he's got mid to late second. It's kind of where I'm at. He just traded JSN for Staff and Baker. What are your thoughts about that? He lost A-Rod and Carr. That stinks.
It sucks because I know you're trying to win at this point, right? You've got JSN. He's not really getting a ton of snaps. He's not really getting a ton of utilization. So you move him now for a couple quarterbacks that you lost both of them. You know, Derek Carr, who knows how long he's out with the shoulder. So not only was he not playing well from a fantasy perspective, now he's hurt with the shoulder. So I understand the move. And sometimes these are the moves you've got to be willing to make if you're going to compete. I don't know that you could have done much better, to be honest, going and getting a Stafford and a Baker. And, you know, I'm a little bit of a Baker guy. You know, he played for my Browns for a long time, took us to the first playoff win that we had in a very long time. And we don't really know yet, but he could end up being the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know it's a little bit of a rough sled for him this week, but the first 2 weeks he looked really, really good, back to kind of his normal, accurate self. So if he can manage to put a decent season together, he may see a little bit more longevity in the league. And Stafford looks healthy to me. You know, I know, Dave, you talked about the elbow and shoulder and back and all these things, but he looks healthy. He's slinging the ball. It looks good. It's accurate. It's tight. So I think you're okay for a win now type move like this. Obviously, you don't want to do that if you don't have to, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the JSN side and the longevity of this one. I think you could, if you're shopping with JSN, I think you can come home from the store with something a little better than that. And we'll check in on this one in a few weeks to see how those guys are doing. But I understand sometimes you got to trade some pieces when you got to win. I mean, I offered the guy above me, JSN, and a first for Josh Allen in the league. He didn't even answer my message. So it's tough out there.
Yeah, I just pulled JSN up just to take a look and see if there's anything around a quarterback. And
Anything
even if
recent?
we go back to the what's that?
Any recent trades?
No, I mean the 18th is the earliest. That was JSN for T. Higgins straight up. You see JSN swapping with some other receivers. I don't see a quarterback until you get down to kind of a 3-for-5 trade down there on the 13th, which is just a little too difficult to go back and forth about. So, yeah, nothing recent to say JSN for a quarterback right now.
What about some running backs? Let's talk about those Miami running backs. They were pretty good this weekend.
Pretty good.
I mean, it was
pretty good.
It was pretty good. I think it was okay.
4 touchdowns each. It's
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was a pretty amazing performance. I thought that the Chiefs were going to boat race the Bears in similar fashion, and I just wrote an article. And so the 4 teams are 0-3, and they're all playing against each other this weekend. And so we got the Vikings and the Panthers, and we have the Bears and the Broncos. Those are the worst teams. Like the Texans and Cardinals are no longer the worst teams in the NFL. And the Bears have the Panthers pick. The Bears and Panthers are going to be in an interesting spot. Yeah, Musgrave is a stud. This was an absolute great class. Like we haven't even seen Kincaid take off yet. We haven't seen much from Mayer. I mean, he had a nice catch the other day, but this was an absolute great tight end class. And you usually don't see him pop for 2 or 3 years. The fact they're popping early is a great sign.
Yep. Yeah, and Dave, you were all about Luke Musgraves. I was a little lower on him, so you definitely got the win on that one. That's for sure.
Appreciate that.
Well, so one other thing about Musgrave, if you watch that game, there was a deep touchdown that Jordan Love just missed him on. Right? I mean, it was probably 30 to 40-yard pass down the seam, wide open. He had the defense beat. Like he was a yard, an overthrown pass away from an absolute monster of a game. It went from that potential to a modest game for the tight end position. So if you can go get him before he pops off, he's one of the guys that I marked on here. He's got he is second highest in yards per route run for the Green Bay Packers right now. And he's a guy that saw not only an increase in snaps, but also an increase in route participation from week 2 to week 3. So he's a sneaky buy because the production did creep up a little bit, but not really enough to where people are going to be hesitant to move him.
Yeah, I mean, I got him for Tyjae Spears the other day. Just a quick little trade. And so, it's hard to find tight ends these days. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see the usage when Watson gets back and Aaron Jones. Those obviously are 2 big pieces to that offense. But Packers offense is not as bad as we kind of thought it was going to be.
Yep.
So what's Mostert going for these days? I mean, for me, he's probably a guy that you have to keep if he's on your roster because nobody's going to pay much for him. And so, as much as I want to say Mostert is a sell, he's going to be hard to sell because of his past. What do we got?
Yeah, I mean, you have to package him to get anything. You can see Raheem Mostert for a third and a fourth in 2024. Raheem Mostert for a third in 2024. This one's interesting. Raheem Mostert in a fourth for Gabe Davis in a second. If I could pull that off, I'm smashing that. Raheem Mostert in a couple firsts for Saquon Barkley. I don't know if I'd be willing to move 2 firsts plus for Saquon Barkley right now. Dave, is that something you'd be looking to do?
You can't trade 2 firsts for any running back these days. It's just such a volatile position. It's hard, and I get it. Like sometimes you get 2 late first, end up being 2 whiffs, and you're fine. Like I love looking back at some of these NFL trades, and it's like, oh my God, why did they give up so much for this player? And then you're like, yeah, they gave up a lineman that never played, a defensive lineman that never got a second contract, and like a blocking tight end for a starting quarterback for Patrick Mahomes. It's like, yeah, it was worth it.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I think another good move on here is if you can package Raheem Mostert with a third to move up into the second round, right? Or Raheem Mostert and a fourth to move into the second round.
Go get Musgrave.
If you could do that. Musgrave, some of these other guys, well, Quentin Johnston, you're not going to be able to get super cheap right now with Mike Williams landing on the IR, but there are a lot of names like that you could probably go and sneakily get Mostert and another decent piece to go move up the board quite a bit.
Would you trade if you're a win now team, you need a third or fourth running back? Would you trade a late second for Raheem Mostert? Would you need a third back to do it, or would you do it without it?
No, I would move a late second. This is a completely wrong thing to say. I would move a late second to go get Raheem Mostert on a win now roster. I would like to see something more than a late second if I was the Mostert owner. So, and that's where I'm at right now. I took an orphan that is old and decrepit, and it's not a contending type team. And I've got Mostert on it. I've got Gus Edwards on it. and I got guys offering me a 4th-round pick for Mostert. Like, I would rather keep him than give him to you for a 4th and get nothing out of it. So, and it's worked out so far. He's been healthy. So just another week of production just makes them a little more willing and a little more, me a little more capable of maybe getting a little bit more. So there's that timeline, though, that you got to play with.
You got to be careful. Last year, Rashad Penny did the same thing, and then all of a sudden I got greedy, and then he broke his leg. And so, like, I would take a 2nd-round pick now because I know if he gets one injury, that 4th-round pick's going to start looking pretty good.
Do you have anybody on your roster in Dynasty that was a 4th-rounder?
From this conversation, it sounds like you don't value 2nd-round picks at all.
I don't value 3rd and 4th like other people do.
If you're in a league with Brad, you're going to need to trade him a late 1st for Stafford and an early 2nd for Raheem Mostert. And what's going to happen is those guys are going to die on his roster.
That's right. Hey, if you want them, pay for them. Otherwise, I'll let them die. It's better that they die on my roster than give away a league-winning type running back right now for what could be the 312.
Let me know how you feel on rookie draft day next year. Let me know how you feel when you got Mostert and Stafford on your bench, and I got all the draft picks. Let me know how you feel.
And I'm trying to trade you for the 312.
Yeah. It's like, who else do we got here? What about Devon A-Chain? He had an absolute crazy weekend. I think they said the top 5 or 6 recorded fastest players this year were all Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins look like a straight-up Madden squad. They look unstoppable, and they didn't even have Jalen Waddle. It was just carnage this weekend against the Denver Broncos, Vance Joseph, and then, the next day the Buffaloes got crushed by Oregon. It was a rough weekend for the Colorado fans. What's A-Chain going for, and do we have any recent trades?
We got the circle of death right now, so we don't have any offers up on the board at the moment.
Let's ask the chat, Jamie or Matt. What would you give for A-Chain right now? I know that some people were pretty bullish and they were taking him in super flex leagues late 1st, that 111, 112 spot. A lot of leagues he was going for an early 2nd. So I mean, as of now, you're probably not gonna give him away for anything less than what you paid, especially after a 51-point performance. And then the question is, I mean, it's hard to ignore that. And I'll be honest, I was watching a highlight and the sound was off. He looked like Tyreek Hill. And it was
disgustingly fast.
He was so fast. But, I'm someone that was not very high on him. And so my immediate reaction is like to sell. And part of that reaction is he was a healthy scratch week 1. Jeff Wilson's coming back. How are they going to use this? Mike McDaniels has said no one loses their job because of an injury. I don't think you can ignore what he did, and he's not going to go away. Obviously, it's going to be hard for him to do that again. But it's also very hard to ignore that talent and say, this guy is pretty special.
Yeah, so a good trade, even though it's a week plus old, is Devon A-Chain for Puka Nacua. Who would have thought we'd be talking about a trade that involves these two guys right now and be league-winning type players right now, possibly? So what side of that are you on? Because I think that's very intriguing. You see that positional swap a little bit. Would you be on the Puka side? I kind of, you're a wide receiver guy. You value them a little bit more than the running back. So where are you at with that one?
Yeah, I like the Puka side on that one. I'm going to take the longevity and security. I think he's the long-term replacement over there to be the number 1 receiver for Los Angeles. And, I can understand both sides, but it's funny because they flip-flopped. Puka was a 3rd or 4th round rookie pick, and A-Chain was a 1st or 2nd rounder. Then they flip-flopped, and now after this week, I had someone DM me and said, hey, what do you think about this trade? And he was kind of like, the league was kind of upset about it. Somebody traded a 3rd round pick and A-Chain for Kamara. He said, "What do you think about this? It just went down, and we don't like it." And I said, "Well, first of all, don't complain about somebody's trade. It makes you look jealous, and honestly, sometimes you can end up looking silly." But I said it looks like somebody really likes A-Chain, and I said he's a lot younger, and Kamara doesn't have a whole lot of value in Dynasty these days. So it was essentially a second and third round pick for A-Chain, who was a late first round pick in a lot of leagues. So I said I'm totally fine with it. And then he messaged me on Sunday night and goes, he knew something. He must have knew something. And I said, yeah, man, I'm sure a lot of people were eating words when they were mad at that trade. You know,
Yeah.
I had a bunch of league mates mad at me. I gave A-Chain away basically for free in a redraft league. He was my second to last pick, and I didn't draft a kicker thinking I can draft a kicker. I can pick one up off waivers. Then they locked until after week 1. So I didn't know my settings in this vampire league that I didn't even want to join. And next thing you know, I'm having to give away to the vampire a player for a kicker because no one wanted to deal with me. And so I gave A-Chain away for a kicker in a redraft league. I offered Roshan Johnson. He didn't take it, and he came back with A-Chain, and I'm regretting it. But A-Chain get 52 points on his bench this weekend.
Yeah, this offer here that Matt's talking about is an interesting one because I don't know that I see A-Chain and Cook much differently. They're really close to the same size. I think they're both 190, right around 190, maybe a little smaller than that. They're pass catching kind of guys. A-Chain's got more of the speed than James Cook does. So I actually probably lean the A-Chain side here. I think I'm A-Chain regardless of situation on this one.
I'll take James Cook. James Cook's the lead in that backfield. You can't say he's on a better offense because you can't be on any, and no team's better than Miami. But he doesn't have Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson nipping at on his heels. He's had 3 good weeks. A-Chain's had 1, and I get it. That 1 good week was probably worth about 5. But I like Cook, and I think he's, like Matt said, sustainable. I mean, he's been consistent every single week. You could start him. He's an RB2 every week.
Yeah. So hang on a second because I want to look at something. I don't know about the sustainability, to be honest. So if I go, let me sort
Roshan and a second for A-Chain. There's a lot of people frothing at the mouth for Roshan. I'll say this. This is something that I've noticed in the Bears game. First of all, we can't always, trust competent coaching and things like that. But be careful when we're watching guys that are playing well at the end of the game. Number one, the coaches put them in at the end of the game, not at the beginning of the game. That's a problem. Number two, defenses aren't playing the same type of defenses. And I get it. Roshan looks a lot better than Herbert, but I want to see Roshan start the game, play on first and second down in the first quarter so I can get a good comparison. Because when they're playing, they're playing prevent defense in the fourth quarter, it's not the same as the first quarter. And Roshan's looked better for sure, but he's not playing the same, the same snaps.
Yeah, it's tough because you got to play that game with him, right? Do you buy him before he starts to get those first quarter snaps and the starts? Or do you wait until you see it a game and possibly be too late and they jack the price up on you? So that's one of those, you got to take it a shot. You got to project what you think and what you see with your eyes. And if you think he's the better guy, and you trust Luke Getsy and Matt Eberflus to be rational coaches, then okay, go get him. I just don't know if I trust the two of them to be rational about the situation.
Well,
so I'm trying to move him to somebody who believes in him right now, mainly because of that. I just don't know that I trust the coaching situation.
I still would buy Roshan Johnson. I think he's a good buy, and I do think that those guys that are not making the right decisions are not going to be making decisions anytime sooner. And they're also going to be they are already have some pretty hot seats. they're going to have to make some moves because their jobs are absolutely on the line right now.
Yeah.
Like Chicago Bears had the worst PR week I've ever seen. Like they got robbed. They literally got robbed. $1,000 or was it $100,000 worth of equipment and things was robbed from the Chicago Bears facility. One of their coaches had to resign. A bunch of weird stuff going on. Then the quarterback is like, it's not our fault. It's the coaches. Then he's like, nah, never mind. It was just like worst case scenario times 10. And then they got stomped on Sunday.
Yep. 10 points. They scored 10.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
DJ Moore fantasy players are very happy with that hot, stinky garbage touchdown.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So if you guys get we've probably gone through enough trades unless you want to talk about Laporta before we go into the rest, but we're going to talk about target share and snap share. Brad's got an article out. It's great. It's one of those things where you can't look at the box score and just make decisions off that because you're going to end up chasing points and making some decisions without looking behind. And so it goes a little deeper and tells you not only why good players are playing well, but what players are going to play well. It's a good indicator and predictor for breakouts when you look at some of this stuff behind it.
Yeah, for sure. And you can use this to kind of forecast some of your player parlay bets and things like that. But there's other stuff out there to help you with that. And one of our sponsors is Vision for that. So you can sign up with them and save 40% off of football season special when you use our promo code SGP. So you go to vision.com/subscribe, use our promo code SGP. So it's a pretty cool concept. They've got all of the odds, all of the statistics behind it. They've got player prop bets. They've got spread bets. They've got all kinds of stuff. And our big guys, Sean and Ryan, are in a contest going head-to-head with a bunch of other Vision shows to see who can sell the most subscriptions. So help us out. If you like us, the winning show gets $1,000 Super Bowl future bet. And the best part is Sean and Ryan are going to cut you in on that prize if they win. So step one, go to vision.com/subscribe. Use our promo code SGP to sign up. And then go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/vision and submit that proof of purchase. Again, if Sean and Ryan win, you'll get to vote on what team to use the $1,000 Super Bowl future on. And if it hits, you'll get an equal piece of that action as well. So go to vision.com/subscribe. Use our promo code SGP. Then again, go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/vision to submit.
And don't forget about Hall of Fame bets. I have an article out about how to use Hall of Fame bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bets, revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by each leg, as well as expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort all the players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets.
All right. So we'll move into SnapShare. So I've got a few guys I want to talk about. And obviously, you can check out the articles at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. It should drop tomorrow with all the other specifics. But a couple guys I think you should pay attention to that just really, these are guys that haven't hit yet that I think you need to really focus in on from a dynasty perspective. First guy we're going to talk about, Kansas City Chief wide receiver Rashee Rice. Haven't really done much of anything up to this point, but here's the key thing to think about. How many routes are they running? And then do they start to see a little bit of uptick in targets as well? And Rashee Rice has seen both of those. He has seen his target share and his routes run go up each of the first 3 weeks of the season. So it's a guy who's starting to get acclimated. We saw some drops in week 1 from him, but he comes back in week 2, still gets a little bit of work, and then week 3, it continues to go up. Look, Nobody knows what the hell's going on with the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver room, right? Can we trust Tony? Can we trust MVS? Is it Sky Moore? Is it the rookie and Rashee Rice? What is it? Justin Watson again? Like, who is the guy to go for? And I'm going to go with Rashee Rice. He also not only has seen an uptick in targets and routes for each of the first 3 weeks, he actually leads the team in yards per route run. So this is a guy you need to go by now before he explodes onto the scene, in my opinion. So go by Rashee Rice. Next up, Treylon Burks, right? Everybody says, oh, man, what's going on? Tennessee was a stinker this week. Thank goodness against my Cleveland Browns. I enjoyed every single second of that. But we have seen the same thing that I just talked about with Rashee Rice, with Treylon Burks. From week 2 to week 3, we saw an uptick in targets, and we saw an uptick in opportunities, i.e. the amount of routes that Treylon Burks ran as well. He is the number 2 in that offense, but he is a high first-round draft pick and a guy that they're going to continue to try to build that offense around as long as the coaching staff stays intact. So go pay attention to Treylon Burks as well. This is the next guy I want to talk about is a deep stash. A deep stash. He was a 4th-round pick in a lot of dynasty leagues, if you even went that far. And if you didn't, then he's likely available on your waiver wire. And that is going to be Demario Douglas, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. Again, another guy that has seen big upticks in routes run and target opportunity. With the New England Patriots, you see Kendrick Bourne, his snaps. He has an explosive week 1. Turns around in week 2, drops to 50%. Week 3, still 50%. Devontae Parker comes in week 2, has a good game, disappears in week 3. Juju is still gone. The only sure thing, or the only consistency that you're getting out of the New England Patriots right now, is Hunter Henry and Ramondre Stevenson and that really decent, good defense that New England seems to always put out on the field. So where's the opportunity going to go? I'm going to go with the cheapest option in this offense right now. That's going to be Demario Douglas. Again, a guy that we've seen uptick each of the 3 weeks from a target and an opportunity from a routes run perspective. Hey, I love it. Taxi squad. That's what I'm talking about. Probably got him super, super cheap as well. So I absolutely love it. Next up, I want to talk about a couple tight ends. Right, Luke Musgrave. I don't want to skip over because we already kind of talked about him. But hey, if you didn't watch the game, go get NFL Plus. Go watch the condensed game in like 35 to 40 minutes. You can watch the whole game, and you'll see how much he was involved, how much he was open. You'll see that deep bomb that he just got missed on that would have been a long touchdown. This dude is going to hit soon. And then you're not going to be able to afford him because he's a tight end that hits, and you're not going to be able to pay for it. The other one that I like, and we've talked a little bit about him, and I was a little higher on a rookie coming into the team, and that's going to be Dallas Cowboys tight end Jake Ferguson. Same type of situation. Hey, the water's kind of muddy. We saw him and Peyton Hendershot, Luke Schoonmaker, all 3 on the field in week 1. And that has slowly started to normalize where Jake Ferguson is going to be and is trending to be the top option in the tight end room for Dak Prescott, who really enjoys his tight ends and has for a number of years. So he can be a very valuable target for you and really a pretty affordable target if we're really going to be honest with ourselves as well. And then I'm going to put my last stab in for my one true love that I'm going to go down dying. I'm sinking in with the ship here, and that's Antonio Gibson. And I know it's been rough. He saw an uptick in work from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. He saw an uptick in routes run from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. So I'm very curious if he's going to kind of turn into that pass catching guy. I don't know that his snap share, I don't have it right in front of me right now, whether or not his snap share has gone up each of those 3 weeks or not. But his route, like I said, his route opportunity, his rushing opportunity and his target opportunity has gone up each of the last few weeks. And for a guy that has plummeted in value, you could probably get him very, very cheaply right now. And I get it, Matt. He continues to burn me also because I am probably too much of a truther for him right now. So
it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So what are your thoughts on this question here?
I would not drop DeAndre Hopkins. I would figure out how to pick up Tank Dell for sure. But I don't think I'm ready to drop Hopkins just yet. Few reasons for that. I'm not sure that we're going to see Ryan Tannehill the entire season. And that doesn't necessarily mean bad things for DeAndre Hopkins, right? A lot of times you see some of these young rookie quarterbacks just hyper target, the guy that gets open, and DeAndre Hopkins can still get open. I don't want to plug NFL Plus constantly, but again, if you go look at NFL Plus, you can watch these games condensed. You can still see that at least in week 1 and 2, DeAndre Hopkins looked pretty good. Week 3 was questionable. He wasn't fully healthy. He's going up against Denzel Ward, who is an incredibly good shutdown corner. So that coupled with the health, I think, is why you saw a little bit of dip in production in week 3. But DeAndre Hopkins in week 1 and 2 still looked like DeAndre Hopkins. The numbers are not there. I get that. But I'm not ready to drop him just yet.
So I'll say this. I would not do it, but I wouldn't hate it if you did it. Right now, ECR's actually got Dell above Hopkins 33-40.
Yep.
So Dell is wide receiver 33 and Hopkins is 40. But here's the move that I would make. Hopkins has name value. So take Hopkins, package him with your quarterback, get a better quarterback. Package him with your tight end, get a better tight end. You got an open spot. Now you can go get Tank Dell. Use the name value. People, especially in your home leagues, casual leagues, not Dynasty, they're going to be looking for, those bigger names. They don't care about, some of the stuff that Brad just laid out. They see a guy with a big name and they're going to be like, I'm going to get Hopkins plus Dak Prescott, and all I got to do is give you Justin Herbert. All right, I'll do it. And so, those are the kind of things you're going to look at. Find ways to do that. The other day I had Kamara coming back off suspension. I'm like, I got to move one of these players to make room for Kamara. Instead of dropping a guy, I did a trade where I just added Rashawn Johnson and somebody else to go upgrade, and then I moved Kamara into the spot. And so those are the things that I'm trying to do to be a little creative, get a little bit of an edge versus just dropping a guy straight up for Tank Dell.
Love it. I love that strategy. It's the 2-for-1 is always a good strategy in most cases, right? If you end up with the best player out of the deal, that's a good strategy to go with. So I really enjoy the 2-for-1s where I get a spot, the better player, and especially if there's somebody on the waiver wire that I like.
Yeah, and if you need to find room, if you need to find time to buy some time, if you're in a kicker league, what I'll do is I'll pick up Tank Dell, drop my kicker, then go find a way to make this move, and then I'll go get a kicker this weekend when somebody drops to out and I go to slide into my IR spot, or you make that trade, that 2-for-1, and now you can go do it. But I do that all the time where I don't pick up a defense or I don't pick up a kicker and I'll add an extra piece, and then you can either try to sell somebody and move that way, or you can wait till somebody goes into the out or whatever, and then just don't forget that to pick up a kicker or defense and put them in your lineup. And also, everybody, don't forget there's a London game on Sunday.
Early, 9:00. Get her done.
Gonna have to get some breakfast tea and some biscuits.
That's right. I love it. Oh, man.
All right. Brad, what else we got?
That's all I got from a target share perspective. I don't want to give everything away. Those are the guys I would go look at: Rashee Rice, Treylon Burks, Demario Douglas, Luke Musgrave, and Jake Ferguson.
So a couple of things that I'll talk about, some people that I think you can buy. Definitely, and of course, thanks, Jamie. And Ramondre Stevenson. People are going to see all the touches that Zeke Elliott got and all that. Ramondre Stevenson, go acquire him in your redraft leagues. Go acquire him in your dynasty leagues. He is a player that I'm very interested in. And I go and listen to a couple shows today. JJ Zacharyson, go get Ramondre Stevenson. Andrew Erickson, go get Ramondre Stevenson. When two guys that I really agree with say the same thing, I'm going to hop on board with that. And another guy is Zach Charbonnet. Something that was very interesting. Ken Walker was great. But behind the action, you saw a little bit of an uptick with Zach Charbonnet, and you saw kind of a defined role. And he was playing in their 2-minute offense. And so something that was talked about by Andrew Erickson was if you get a role, you get all of it. Because they don't – the reason you're doing a no-huddle offense or a 2-minute offense, you're not bringing a bunch of people in off the sideline. You're not doing a bunch of changes. You don't have time for it. So that's somebody that they trust in, pass protection. They can throw the ball to, and that understands the blocking schemes. Usually rookies do not carry that role for this exact reason. Jerick McKinnon always has that role because of all the things I just laid out. But Charbonnet is obviously earning trust. We saw him get in the end zone this week. He literally, well, maybe he didn't get to the end zone, but he threw a guy to the moon at the goal line. But that's something that is very interesting. I'm not go and sell Ken Walker for Charbonnet, but Charbonnet is a guy that you can target in your redraft leagues. If something happens to Ken Walker, his value goes through the roof. And he's going to have, I think, standalone value as an RB3, maybe a fringe RB2. But if something ever happened to Ken Walker, he would absolutely explode. The offensive line is going to get healthier. He's on a decent offense, and he's got some good matchups coming up too. But those are two guys, Charbonnet and Stevenson, that I would target.
Yeah, so Stevenson, the data supports what you're talking about also, right? So if you look at a targets perspective, a run percentage perspective, a snap, all of those things are still in alignment and show that Stevenson is the one. So while he did lose from week 2 to week 3, some of the rushing work, he saw a pretty large or substantial uptick in receiving work or in opportunities, I'll say, in routes run. So even though he did lose some of those rushing snaps, he ended up making up for it in receiving snaps. The production just wasn't there. So it may be, keep that in the back of your mind. You obviously don't share that information while you're trying to trade with somebody, but I do think that the data is there to support that he is still the guy.
Yeah, and Josh Jacobs is another one. Josh Jacobs is someone that he obviously owns that backfield. It took him a few weeks to get going last year, but I know he's on a stinky offense, but he owns the backfield. And like a lot of these guys that are doing well, there's another guy. There is no other guy. And it's not like even like Najee Harris, who I've been a defender of Najee Harris. Doesn't look that good. Warren looks good. And we're not seeing the old Mike Tomlin bell cow approach. And so, but one thing that we talked about earlier about like with snap counts and everything, another thing to look at is how often are they being used? So like Brad talked about with like route percentage, we want to see tight ends that are out there on every snap. We also want to see tight ends that are participating in routes. We also want to see tight ends and receivers that are getting targeted. We hear about the cardio guys, the Alec Pierce, the Mac Hollins, and there's guys that run, they play on 95% of the snaps, and they run 95% of the routes, but they get 2 targets. I'm not going after those guys. I'd rather the guy that's on 80% of the snaps, that's 80% on the route participation, but he's getting 10 targets. So looking at targets and looking at targets per route run, those kind of things can also differentiate some of these guys from the rest of the pack that are also running a lot of routes and also doing a lot of snaps, both tight ends and receivers.
Yep, I love it. And that's, you talk about that. You talk about targets per route run, yards per route run is another really good indicator of a production from a production standpoint. So that might be a really good one to look at as well from a perspective of when they're on the field, does it translate to production, right? So The target per route run is absolutely there. The yards per route run is absolutely there for a lot of the guys that we talked about. I had one on the list that I ended up taking off because I didn't like the yards per route run. It was a little too low for me. So that is a very good stat to use from a production standpoint. Because I can turn around and show you, look at all the targets that Paris Campbell got. 6 for 6. He got 6 targets, caught all 6 of them. You know what he got? 25 yards.
Yeah, it's got to result in fantasy points, and at the end of the day. And the last guy I think is an interesting one to talk about. Speaking of bell cows, Zach Moss. And so Zach Moss appears to be a screaming sell. You have Jonathan Taylor potentially coming back. If Jonathan Taylor gets the kind of usage that Zach Moss is getting, yeah, go buy Jonathan Taylor. And here's why I think you could also hold out some hope for Moss. Jonathan Taylor still could be traded. Yeah. You could still see Jonathan Taylor traded. So you don't want to just go sell Zach Moss for peanuts and then you end up regretting it. But Jonathan Taylor is an absolute screaming buy because if he comes back and gets Zach Moss's type of workload, absolutely gonna be a smashing success. But if Jonathan Taylor gets traded, Zach Moss could be someone that ends up having a pretty good role and being pretty viable if Jonathan Taylor is traded. And then you have both guys, Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, are viable. Imagine Jonathan Taylor gets traded to the Baltimore Ravens, where J.K. Dobbins is out, someone like that. What about the Cleveland Browns? And the Browns traded running back to the Colts a while ago. It didn't really work out for the Colts, but
hey, thank you for taking Trent. We appreciate it. But I don't particularly want to take that favor back either. So
you would take Jonathan Taylor.
Let's slow down a little bit because Nick Chubb only tore the MCL. Not as devastating as what we thought it was, which I have no idea how the hell that happened. You talk about a dude that's superhuman like that. If you have not seen the screenshot, don't go look because it's gross.
Oh, I haven't looked, but Sports Doc did question that a little bit. So I don't know. They haven't had the surgery yet to get in there, but they're saying that they hope that it's just the MCL based on what they're seeing, but he has not had the surgery yet.
I thought the MRI already came back that it wasn't.
I'd have to double check that. I might be wrong.
I'll double check too.
Yeah, I same thing, man. Everyone was spending $90 or $100 on Jerome Ford. I was spending $5 and $6 on Kareem Hunt. I had him on a bunch of dynasty teams. I actually had him on my Scott Fishbowl team. Got Zach Moss was my last pick on my Scott Fishbowl team. Didn't you get Manziel for the Trent pick? Yeah, if that's true, then maybe it was a fair trade.
Ooh, that might have been
blind for the blind.
That's a good question, Jamie. I'm gonna have to check that out now.
Well, hey, Matt, Jamie, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Everybody, as always, good luck this season.
Cheers.